I would like to add some more numbers and data and facts, but you already said your position. That's why I just put a question to you. So there's some rumors that NATO countries don't want to give weapons for Ukraine as there will no weapon for self-defense. Is that true for Czech Republic too?
You know, last July, I was discussing this, so I mean July 2022, with the highest representatives of the biggest NATO countries. And I have rediscovered that the amount of assistance provided to Ukraine created loopholes in our storage, in our strategic storage. And I think that we have to be aware that by providing assistance, necessary assistance to Ukraine, we have to wake up ourselves. Ukraine, for me, is a very unique situation in which it has to defend itself. It had succeeded to convince also ourselves that we are able to stop the aggressor, and you bought us a time. And I think that in our public debates here in Czech Republic, for instance, in Prague or in Europe, we have to be aware and reminded then that the time that Ukraine succeeded to provide us is very costly in terms of human lives, in terms of victims, in terms of costs. And that it doesn't mean that we should sleep and just take a rest. This is the time that we have to use for strategizing and for reinforcing our not only military and defense capabilities, but also our civilian capabilities. We admire, for instance, how quickly Ukraine succeeded to connect civilian sector and defense, military sector. And this is something that we have also to take as a lesson for ourselves.
I want to jump a little further because we started to talk about the NATO and the situation with the security, especially in Western European countries. So I want to ask you, do you really see any threats from the side of Russian Federation towards your country? Because a lot of threats very loudly we can hear from propagandist channels of Russian television towards Poland and toward Baltic countries. So when you're saying about strengthening your borders, and we see that the NATO are trying to do it, especially in the western borders of European Union. So what threats from Russia you feel and you awaiting and you maybe see actually right now?
First of all, we live in an open space, open democratic space, enabling every single citizen of the Czech Republic to take part on the life, on the public decision making. And this open space and this proximity of elected bodies or of administration with the citizens is an asset. But if we speak about psychological warfare or hybrid warfare, which is undermining trust of citizens, this open space becomes an enabler or an incentive for Russia and for China also and others to intrude themselves. They do not have even the right of they do not need it to have a right of residence here. They do not pay taxes. They do not have a permit, but they intrude themselves, invite themselves to our public debate, disseminating mistrust, disseminating feeling of distrust of people towards the rule of law, towards democracy, and towards their elected governments, for instance. And this is something extremely dangerous. We see it in Czech Republic. By the way, Cambridge Analytica, the famous online tool, was used in the Czech Republic even before it was used in the UK or in the United States. And it was hired by then the candidate Miloš Zeman, who was very close to Russian money. So we have some experience. We follow the lessons learned from other democratic countries. Nevertheless, in times of war, we have to be extremely cautious. For instance, last session, we approved defense cooperation with the United States. You can imagine that even in times of war, Russian pressure for proxies here, be it extreme right or others, trying to destroy the trust between Czech Republic and United States was just outstanding. It was amazing game, online game, and we had to take some precautions in order to safeguard the freedom of parliament to freely debate and freely decide. And it was one of the latest examples that I have in mind, that we had to protect our democratic debate, and it was not without some surprises.
They are trying to destroy the attitude towards Ukraine among the European countries as well, but doesn't manage to do it, as from we see and hear what your government, what your parliament doing towards the help of Ukraine. And therefore, let's get back to the battlefield, because we understand how important the situation, the battlefield in Ukraine, from what we started conversation with you. So I want to add some expert thoughts about the situation, current situation with counteroffensive in Ukraine, and then we'll discuss it. So James Hippie, Britain's Minister of State of the Armed Forces, announced that Ukraine's offensive was meeting expectations and going according to plan, as reported by the Telegraph, the issue. And I want to add some more information. Hippie emphasized that the armed forces are advancing cautiously through dense Russian minefields. He also said that the Ukrainians have enough firepower to break through the enemy front. And more of this, I want to add some more quotes. The Ukrainian counteroffensive is far from a failure, even though it is progressing more slowly than planned, stated the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States, General Mark Milley. The main problem causing Ukrainian casualties right now is minefields, not Russian aircrafts, said Mr. Milley. So from your point of view, from your expertise, Ukrainian counteroffensive, is it fast? Is it slow? And how can we speed it up, maybe together?
You know, my dream is that Ukraine is free, sovereign country with all the territory recognized internationally, again under the flag of Ukraine. This is my dream that I would have to come true today. And sometimes I miss patience if I observe myself, or if I observe my friends, or if I observe the public opinion in the Czech Republic. Because we witnessed also in our own past how destructive or how cruel Russian imperialism can be. And we measure the challenge. Nevertheless, we are not on the battlefield. And if we realize that the battlefield is a line which is hardly imaginable in terms of kilometers, of hundreds of kilometers, of thousands of kilometers, we have to admit that we face also an absence of information that is very natural in times of war, that we have to be patient enough and make our possible on our side. What we did, for instance, with our committee, is that 1 month ago we packed our affairs, and we traveled by night trains to Lviv, Kiev, and Dnipro, trying to understand what the needs on the ground are. It was after the blast of Kakhovka Dam, and from the first hand, we could observe how the assistance already provided by the Czech Republic helped, and what is needed now. And I think that this is our role today. Emotions at the beginning of the conflict were extremely high here. Now it's maybe time for reflection, for rational approach, providing steadfast support. And by the way, the results of the opinion poll in NATO countries on the eve of NATO summit are extremely encouraging. In Prague, in Czech Republic, it is still far beyond 50%, maybe 60 or more persons in favor of helping Ukraine. And people who see Russia as an aggressor go almost to 80 or 90%. So I think that we are committed to be here, to help, and also to explain to our own public that if they do not see the images of happy emotions coming from the front, it doesn't mean that there is not an evolution which can be paying on the longer run.